Hello, everybody. I am happy to be here today, and I'm excited to discuss another chapter with everyone. Uh, so, first, I will say hello. I'm Rhonda, and today I have with
Okay.
me.
Hey, thought we were doing that.
We are, we are. I'm
Come
sorry.
on, Rhonda.
I know. Let's start that over. Okay, three,
It
and
was
we're
time
starting with
one for your
Kay,
little Mickey Mouse introduction.
Kay, Cherie, then Alice, and then me. Okay, so on
Oh,
three, two, one.
I'm Kay.
I'm Sheree.
Alice.
Oh my God. Um, and I'll be Minnie Mouse today. Clearly we can't do that. We can't get this right. That's okay. It's just fun though. That's what it's all
I'm
about.
getting a helium balloon for next week.
You what?
I'm gonna get a helium balloon
Oh,
for next
for next time. Okay. That sounds like fun. Yeah, let's get helium balloons. Hi Shaz, how are you? Welcome. Katnit, hello, how are you doing? So it looks like I might be in the right place this time, so that's a good thing. So I'm just about getting some of the OBS stuff worked out. So we are going to talk about chapter 4 and um, another riveting case of a person who could very well have been wrongly convicted in the same way that Malcolm Rent Johnson was wrongly convicted because this man was not a good guy. He was a criminal and all kinds of stuff, but the crime that he was committed for, the 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 evidence that convicted him is highly questionable. So there's that kind of thing again. So I will. Hi Sean, how are you doing? Thank you for coming. Welcome. Um, so our case today is about a man. His name was Dewey George Moore. And I just have to say, there's just, hey, T1, I know, I wonder the same thing. Where am I? Um, I just have to say, it's so funny, and I'm sure it's not the case, but it just seems like in in Oklahoma, everybody has three names, and I have three names as well, but I don't normally refer to myself as like, "Hey, I'm Rondalyn South." But it just seems like all these people in Oklahoma. I kind of joked with Kay about it a while back. So, anyway, Dewey George Moore, and it's a case about him being tried and ultimately convicted, a death row case of the murder of a teenage high school cheerleader. So I am going to let Kay kind of get this started and let her tell you what she has.
Yeah. So I guess after it starts the chapter out talking about after Gilchrist's success with the Malcolm Rent Johnson case, she began to become more popular because I guess she had some struggles connecting with the sex crime detectives and homicide detectives, whereas her her boss, senior chemist Janice Davis, was had a really easy relationship with sex crime and homicide detectives, which was another thing that made Joyce jealous, I guess. But Catfight in the Crime Lab is talking about Joyce Gilchrist and Janice Davis jealousy. Gilchrist's jealousy of Davis and Davis's just outrage really at what she's witnessing as far as the corruption of Gilchrist. She can tell that Gilchrist isn't being straight up. She's not doing the test properly. She's just giving the detectives what they want so that she can be one of the guys, I guess. And as much as Davis reports it, in this chapter, no one cares. So there's a reoccurring theme right there. So the detectives in this case are Detective Bob Benmo, which I haven't heard of him before, and then a popular name, a familiar name, pops back up. Detective Cook is with this guy working. So let's see. Oh, detective. He talked to Detective Benmo about Gilcrease, and Benmo told, what's this guy's name?
Fuhrman.
Mark Fuhrman. That she could produce unbelievable results. He also told him that he didn't believe she was doing the proper lab work, but he didn't say this part, but that didn't stop him from using the results and knowing that they were fraudulent results, or highly suspecting that they were, and using them in court to send people to prison anyway. So these are some really nice people here. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, Davis tried to bring Gilcrease shenanigans to the attention of her superior, and I think even the OSBI, to no avail. So, like Rhonda said, the victim in this chapter is Jennifer Wanell Gilbert, and she was a high school cheerleader. She was missing after a football game. She was last seen in the parking lot after a football game, and then her body was found like 10 miles outside of town. And she was only wearing a bra and panties. She had been strangled to death. And what's interesting is that the Midwest City Police responded to that, and that is not that typically Oklahoma County crime lab personnel would not commonly be working with Midwest City. Midwest City would be working with the OSBI. But, detective, the Midwest City detective, Bill Howard, he called in Oklahoma City to help on the case and ended up with Janice Davis. And it's kind of interesting that, let's see. Oh, let me back up and say that a field investigation for the medical examiner's office at the scene when they found her body, they observed several fibers and foreign hairs on the victim. She also noticed a piece of duct tape stuck to her hair. And so Detective Bill Howard of the Midwest City Police Department, he was also at the scene, and this was his very first homicide. He also said he realized the Gilbert murder would involve a great deal of hair and fiber evidence, and immediately tried to get Janice Davis involved because he recalled that she had just completed a seminar with the FBI special agent about fibers. So,
and just if I can just throw this in, the special agent had helped solve the Wayne Williams child serial. That's a mouthful. The Wayne Williams child serial murder case in Atlanta. Um,
The
so,
one that taught the class, that taught the seminar?
uh-huh.
Is that yeah, okay. Um, but so people were wondering, how could Detective Howard know so early in the investigation that hair and fiber evidence would be the key to solving the case? Because, after there were fibers and hairs, they really didn't keep looking for any evidence. Um, they weren't finding evidence to test. They had already decided that this is a hair and fiber case, and we're going to get Janice in here, and we're going to make this thing work. And so that's exactly what they did.
Kay, do you
At odd,
think, sorry,
yeah.
do you think, or does anybody on the panel think that there was already some, even though Janice and Joyce didn't work well together, do you think it's possible that they knew that there was a really good likelihood if the Oklahoma City Crime Lab helped, that they were likely going to just be able to solve it with hair and fiber because that was Joyce Gilchrist. That was becoming her thing. Um, and maybe they thought Janice Davis would also play along with that. But do you wonder?
I
Because I wondered that.
I don't know. I just find it so odd that those two agencies were working together. It's just not normal.
Right, right. Okay.
So I don't really know. Let's see. So at autopsy, fibers were found. There was no evidence of sexual molestation, which is odd because Dewey Moore, that was his thing. Like, why his thing wasn't just to strangle little girls or teenage girls. He was a sexual predator. So I don't know. I just think I would expect that she would have been sexually assaulted if it would have been him. So, right away, I'm thinking, hey, this is what they do. They, this guy just got out of prison. He's a bad guy. He's back in town. He got arrested um, driving a stolen car. Um, I think he got arrested. I think the
The night,
night before they found her body. Is
right.
that what?
The day, no, the day, I think it was the night of or the day after they found her. Let me see if I can,
The morning after the abduction, but before the body
but
was
before her
found.
body was
He
found,
was
yes.
arrested for driving a stolen car. Um, so Moore was at his brother's house watching TV with his brother's family, and he had actually gone over there, which this sounds very incriminating. He had gone over there to borrow some duct tape um, to seal up the windows of his trailer, supposedly. I was going to look up the temperature in September of that year to see kind of, was it already cold, or maybe the windows were just rattling or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Or I just assumed, we used to do that here when I was buying my house years ago. We would do that. We would winterize because we had really crappy windows, and so we would winterize by early in the year, September, October to get ready. So we weren't doing it when we were freezing. But I don't know if that
yeah.
was the case.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, so, um, he had an alibi, but his brother Eddie's house was less than a mile from the high school. Um, his brother said that he left at 9:15, 9:30. I didn't say what time
Yeah, I
she
think.
left.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember what time the football game was
She was
over.
last seen, I believe she was last seen at 9 that night, if I recall correctly.
Okay, so he didn't. Yeah, his brother estimated that he left sometime between 9:15 and 9:30. Um, and then there was some screwy stuff going on with the searches too, because they went and searched his trailer initially, and then they went back, and then actually his brother wanted to get his heart medicine and take it to the jail.
Yeah,
And so
well,
I guess he
yeah,
get
sorry.
permission to go over there or what? No, am I saying it wrong?
Well,
If I am.
sorry. So what had happened, he had the police escorted his brother to his trailer on the ruse that he was going to go in and collect his medication, his heart medication. But while they were there, they were hoping to get the brother's permission to get in to the trailer, which they couldn't have gotten that. The brother couldn't give permission, for them to get into his brother's trailer. That wouldn't have been legal, but they went in anyway, and they walked in, hey, we're just going to escort you in so you can get the medicine, and then we'll go. Well, he was in getting the medicine and looking for whatever he needed, or he was noticing that, whatever was going on in the trailer. And while he was doing that, they were out at the car that he had stolen, looking through trying to get plain view sight, probable cause to, to search the car. And then it was the next night they'd forgotten that they didn't get the heart medicine the night before, so the brother had to come back and get the heart medicine, and they had to give him the keys to get in because they had confiscated the keys by then. Sorry, that's
No, that's okay. But so then there was a second search.
yeah.
I mean, why they didn't just get a second search warrant
Or well,
instead of using the brother, to as a guise.
yeah,
I mean, they definitely had probable cause, but so the second search, the defense um, says that they used that second search to plant fibers
correct.
in there, he found, and that they had bought 2 cheerleader outfits, I guess, for comparison of fibers or whatever.
Yeah, they claimed they bought two, but yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
I was just at some point during this chapter we find out that they claimed and they turned in receipts for two exact matching cheerleader outfits, but then it was proven at some point later that they actually bought three. So it's suspected that they used the third one to get the fiber and different kinds of things to plant in the trailer and on the girl. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Let's see. Yeah, then there was some issue at trial about the detectives were testifying that Eddie went back on the 29th to get the heart medication, and the jail records supported Eddie's story, his testimony that he actually went on the 30th. And that all was about trying to show that they had compromised the crime scene. But it really didn't matter. I mean, they
Yeah.
came, they collected a lot more fibers that they missed the first time. Does that remind you of anything?
Hmm. Huh. And wasn't it the second
Um,
time or the third time even maybe that Janice Davis went back with them? She was like, "You guys are fucking this program up, and I'm going back with
yeah,
you, and I'm going to be the one to collect the evidence."
that's right. She did. I think that was the second search. Were there 3 search
There
warrants?
might well
I thought it was the second one.
there was only two search warrants, but the first time there was when they went with the brother the night of the arrest. There was no
Hmm.
search warrant, but then there were
Right.
two after that, I believe. maybe just one,
Okay.
but anyway, kind of
I
like
missed
the Avery Dassey thing, probably just, they went back as many times as they wanted. I don't recall exactly. Ooh, I just said the bad words, didn't I? Uh, I don't recall exactly what they, how many warrants there were, but I know there were several trips back and forth between the funeral home where the girl was being prepared and the trailer. So, but that finally Janice Davis just like, look, I need another search done, and it's the second one. I'm just reading it now. On the second search, she said, "I'm going to collect the evidence in this one, this search."
Yeah,
So,
and guess what? She finds clumps of red fiber in plain sight on the living room floor. They
surprise!
just weren't seen the first time. But what did she not find? She didn't find any fingerprints, any blood or semen, anything like that.
Yeah, of
Um,
course not.
let's see.
Must be they
Which
didn't have.
go ahead, Cherie.
I was going to say, must be they didn't have an extra vial of his blood stashed away somewhere. Like
Yeah,
the,
they needed something like that, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, this is a when I read this chapter the first time, I remember thinking, not exactly, of course, but I remember many parallels to the possible, likelihood that there was some planting going on from this particular case to Stephen's case. So there's a lot of parallels there.
And then, like, if
yeah.
that wasn't bad enough or weird enough, um, additional evidence was found but couldn't be linked to either Moore or Gilbert. James Malkin reported finding a sack on the roof of Breeden's Grocery in Midwest City. Macon lived in the same trailer park as Dewey Moore. He had seen police questioning. He had seen police question him shortly before his arrest. Macon had assisted in the search for the victim on the night of her murder, had complained that the police were not doing a thorough enough job. He had spent several days looking for clues in the case and remembered having seen a bag on the roof of the store a week prior. Had a friend, Timothy Baker, climb onto the roof and retrieve the sack. That's not compromising any kind of evidence at all. The
No
item,
bias being created there, right?
no, it just gets crazier. The items found in the sack included a knife, duct tape, 11 cigarette butts, a broken fingernail, a clothing label, a belt, a sanitary napkin, an earring, and burnt matches. The sanitary napkin was a different brand than Gilbert used and contained blood of a similar type to hers and the defendant's. The torn fingernail did not come from the victim or the defendant. The duct tape was not the same brand as the duct tape that Dewey Moore had borrowed from his brother on the night of the murder, and it did not match scrapes of duct tape found beneath his trailer. Scraps, I guess. Yeah, I can't read, people. Of the 11 cigarette burns, 8 of them had enough saliva to determine that they had been smoked by a secretor with type O blood, like almost half of the human species. Both Moore and Gilbert had type O blood. Moore, along with 80% of the population, as a secretor. So, of course, Macy found that with all that evidence, whatever that was,
Whatever that bag
with
of
all
stuff
that,
was.
for sure, man, we got some secretor evidence here. This is serious. Um, so he files charges: murder, kidnapping, and unauthorized use of a vehicle. Macy said that hair and fiber evidence showed Gilbert had been in Moore's car and in his trailer. He also said that the sack found on the grocery contained the knife Moore used to cut off her cheerleading outfit, a belt he used to tie her up, and tape used to gag her. Based only on the blood typing from the cigarette butts, Bob Macy introduced all the items from the sack as evidence directly connected to the murder of Jennifer Gilbert. I want to know who the judge was.
I might have it in the links in one of the case. Oh gosh, I put a bunch of links up that for the mods to drop. Well, I only gave it to Kat and Cherie, but there's a I'll look while you're doing that, while you're reading.
So there were 3 eyewitnesses, um, from the at the parking lot after the football game. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, and we also have Bob Ravitz back as the defense attorney. Who was he in the Malcolm Rent Johnson?
Who? Yes, yep.
Okay.
It's the judge was Oklahoma County District Judge James L. Gullett.
I don't know that judge.
I didn't recognize the name either.
So one of the football players saw a man struggling with a girl who might have been wearing a cheerleader uniform, and that struggle took place over by a yellow car. He did identify Dewey Moore in the courtroom, but he said it was kind of dark. I couldn't really tell, but what I've seen looked like him. Oh my gosh.
We
During
struggle.
cross, yeah, during cross, he acknowledged that he had picked out another man earlier in photo lineup. Um,
But that was poo-pooed.
and I think that we had the television helping out with identification too. So that's a commonality in the Holtzclaw case.
Right.
Um, mhm.
Um,
Oh, and then the 15-year-old ninth grader ends up recanting his story um, years later, I guess.
yeah, during the I want to say the criminal, the court,
Evidentiary hearing.
yeah, something, yeah. He said he just basically that he just couldn't, he identified that guy because he was like kind of under pressure, like, well, it's one of these two kind of thing, and
Mhm.
they're just like, he's like, okay,
He
well then
says
I
I
guess
was
I choose this
very
one.
Yeah, he says I was a 15-year-old ninth grade student when I made my statement. I was very nervous, uncertain, and impressionable. Regarding my eyewitness recollection, the positive identification that I made was incorrect. I could not then, nor could I now, say with certainty that the man I saw was in fact Dewey Moore. And then Cynthia Turner and her husband were also in the parking lot, and Mrs. Turner testified that she saw a man place his arm around a cheerleader, walk her toward a car, then strike her in the face. The girl fell into the passenger side of the car, and the man entered the car after her. Um, Her husband also saw the man, although he did not see him strike the cheerleader. He described the suspect as large, over 200 pounds, with a beer belly and mustache and blonde hair. None of the 3 eyewitnesses selected more from photo lineups.
Yeah.
So the defense also hired Kansas City Crime Lab to review Davis's lab work, which, Davis wasn't the crooked lab person. I mean, I guess they set up the fibers to be matched with fibers, making sure that it was fibers that were going to match.
Yeah, they kind of set her up too, really, in a sense, honestly.
But they found 2 things that she missed, I guess, was 2 additional.
Yeah.
The
They
Kansas City Police Crime Lab guy, he found 2 additional fiber matches that she hadn't made yet. Um,
Yeah.
when Wilson sent in his report, he pointed out these two matches and was surprised to see that Davis had included them in the evidence she presented in trial. He thought she dismissed him and didn't test him, I guess.
Yeah.
That means.
Yeah, that's what he thought. And when she commented on that later or testified on that later, she was grateful. You know, she wasn't like all bitchy like Gilchrist would have been. She was like, you know what, you're right. I missed those, and thank you for finding them. You know, but yeah,
But just like Elaine Taylor, this um, they could not get Davis to. I mean, she answered questions like, you know, could something happen? Is there a remote chance? She'd say stuff like, anything in our society is possible. There is a chance, it's a very remote chance, that this universe will end tonight or tomorrow. That chance exists. We don't plan on it, but that's how she spends her time on the stand, skirting around things. Whereas I guess really Elaine Taylor just came straight out and said, I'm not changing my trial testimony.
yeah. Nope, I'm right. Doesn't matter what you try to say or show me to prove that I'm not. I'm right, and I am not changing what I said, even though I know damn good and well it's a lie, and you all know damn good and well it's a lie. But yeah, Janice
I
Davis
was
just kind of
thinking,
danced. Go ahead,
I
Shirley.
was thinking her anything is possible
Don't
testimony reminded me of
don't
Kucharski and
don't
those
say the
aliens.
alien. Oh my God, I did the same fucking thing. I did the same thing. I was like, oh, is that like aliens going into Steven's
Yeah.
room? Oh my God, I thought the same thing. Yeah, parallels. Oh.
Let's see. Um, bottom of page 80.
Oh, you have different. I was like, wait, what? You have different page numbers than I do.
The original cheerleader's uniform that Gilbert had worn the night she was abducted had never been found. A detective purchased similar uniforms to compare unknown fiber samples taken from Moore's trailer and car. At trial, Ravitz charged that detectives had bought 3 uniforms, not 2 as they claimed, and used the third to plant the clumps of red fibers that Davis later found and which hadn't been retrieved during the first search. Then, you know, Macy loves to do the closing statements. He's a real grandstander. So he says, she died in order for this baby killer to satisfy his own sadistic sexual desires. To satisfy him, a 12-year-old child was beat. He kidnapped her. Can you imagine what that baby was going through? Took her out to his trailer, taped her up with that tape, took that knife right there and cut that uniform off her and kept her there for hours just to justify his own selfish kicks. Piece of work, man.
Selfish
So,
sexual kicks.
yeah,
It's important to
yeah,
put in there because she was not sexually assaulted in any way. They didn't find anything of a sexual nature on her anything, and yet he's using that word sexual or sexual desires and sexual kicks, and she was never sexually assaulted. So just
I mean, that's it. They shouldn't be able to, the prosecutors or defense or police or whoever, they shouldn't be able to lie like that because that's putting falsehoods into the jury's mind. So right there, right off, that's no a fair trial because their mind's being told that it's something that's not even there.
right. And well, what would Kim Davis say? Well, he's just a good trial lawyer, you know. So
Aye.
that's the kind of shit they did, and well, or do. And sorry for anybody from Oklahoma City, but that's what they do in their justice system there. It's like a rite of passage to just keep on doing what they've done, and it's
But that
disgusting.
that that Mace, that Bob Macy, I mean, he's a fucking piece of work. I'm like, and as Kay said, he's got the gift of the gab when it comes to the closing statements and things like that. Just like Kratz did when he turned round and he said, "Oh, the key was planted. Oh, well, just forget about that because that means that you're blaming your cops for planting it. You know, the officers that protect you and everything like that." So you can see the similarities with there as well.
Yeah, yeah,
I was happy that the defense attorney objected during the closing statement, which, in our other cases that we've been looking at, they didn't do that, or the defense attorneys didn't object when they should have, when the prosecutor put forth untruths during the closing statement.
right.
So
Yeah, he was so mad at Macy. I mean, he started his objection when Macy told the jurors, "Ladies and gentlemen, you need to recognize that you're only one piece, one little cog in the community." The defense attorney said that that's a familiar thing that Macy repeats over and over, and he's actually repeatedly been condemned by the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals because it minimizes the jurors' role and it diminished their sense of responsibility in rendering a verdict. So he does object, and he, instead of continuing, like Cherie said, to stand up and object, he just says, that he basically wants the record to reflect that he is objecting. He will continue. He asks that a continuing objection be entered into the record, which I've never heard of that, but
I had neither, and I thought, what good does that do? I mean, I get
well,
it, but
I mean, it's basically kind of what Scott Adams said about, or I guess through Brian Bates anyway, that the reason that Daniel's attorney didn't object, the reason Scott Adams didn't object was because he had been objecting in the closing and the judge was getting irritated. So it was something to that effect. And I need to read that part of the transcript to see what I don't doubt that what he's saying is, I believe what he's saying is probably true, but I mean, I think you would just jump right out of your skin no matter how many times you had already objected when Galen Gigger says that the DNA is from the vaginal wall of a 17-year-old from vaginal.
it shouldn't matter. Well, too bad for the judge if he's irritated,
yeah,
because when you go to have an appeal or get your appeal, sometimes the appellate judges can use that as a reason not to address an issue. Well, you didn't object to it during the trial, so we don't have to address it now. So
Yeah.
that pissed me off.
I mean, it only took him 3 hours and 40 minutes to convict him of murder and kidnapping, and then Macy dropped the other charge because the sentence was, a death sentence plus 999 years in prison on the kidnapping charge. 999 on kidnapping, people.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
funny, wow.
We just do whatever we want in Oklahoma.
Right.
Kidnapping. Let's give them 999.
999 years. Well, and
Well, that sounds good. Consecutive, yeah,
yeah,
consecutive.
consecutive. And from what I understand, he didn't want he let he only dropped the stolen car charge because the death penalty was imposed, but he didn't drop it just in case the jury didn't come back with a death verdict. Then he was going to have something else to charge him on or add to it or something. It was an odd thing that he did, and I just thought it didn't matter. He just wanted people in the damn death chamber. He wanted to execute people. I don't know if Bob Macy went to heaven or hell because, and it's not for me to judge, but holy crap, that is disgusting to, just make everything as evil as you can. And just in case, you know, uh, they don't get the death penalty, well, we'll add this to it so that, they'll be like, oh, okay, well, on appeal, this got added. And so I don't know. He's an evil man. He was an evil man. I feel like. Sorry,
I
but
guess I guess after so Macy says the only thing wrong with this sentence is that it ought to be carried out today. And I guess um, Dewey Moore had enough of Bob by then. Yes, he says Bob Macy's a TV star. He's liable to say anything.
yeah, as they were leading him from the courtroom, right?
Right, right. So he went to McAllister's death row where he lost a series of appeals until a surprise witness surfaced, which um, alleging that Midwest City detectives could have planted hair evidence in Moore's trailer prior to the execution of the second search warrant.
Yeah, the
So
details of this part are fascinating. God.
you want to tell this part, Rhonda?
Sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off. No, you're fine. I
No, go
apologize.
ahead. No, it is fascinating. Go ahead. Maybe you can tell it better.
Oh, I doubt it, but here's what I remember from reading it. So there was a man, Hawkins, who was a mortician who took part in preparing the girl's body for the funeral, and he remembers that shortly after he had already embalmed the body, that two Midwest City detectives came to the funeral home. He'd already embalmed the body and was getting ready to get her ready, dressed and everything. Two Midwest City police detectives come to the funeral home, and he said that he remembered them feeling kind of nervous, or looking kind of nervous. And um, uh, Hawkins said that these detectives they had their man, but they were going to make sure that he got convicted. And the detectives got permission from the mortician to clip some hair samples, or get more hair samples from the victim's body. Horrible. I just feel like that is so gruesome and so abusive, to this poor girl. And then later on that day, the detectives came back. So they took their hair samples, they cut off their little hair samples from wherever and left. And then they came back, and then they're plucking the samples, the hairs from this girl's body. And he said that he didn't understand why they would do that. He had to go and undress this poor girl's dead body and let them do this. And after the second visit by the police, or by these detectives, another employee at the funeral home said that he followed these detectives after they left the funeral home the second time, and he saw them go to Moore's trailer with the hairs, evidently, that they had just clipped, and they were carrying with them a red sweater that um, uh, they were carrying a red sweater. And so remember, there were red fibers in the trailer, and so they were carrying this red sweater, and that's where it's believed that possibly um, the fibers had come from this sweater that he was carrying. But I just thought it was horrible, horrible to go back twice after this girl's body is ready for to be respected at a funeral, and go back and get hairs, and couldn't do it right the first time, and had to go back and pluck them, which would be the proper way to get evidence from hair.
Yeah, and I think that's what's happened, Rhonda, is they've went the first two times and they've cut the hair, and then somebody's told them, no, you can't cut it, you need to pluck it, because they need the follicle that's on the end of the hair for them to get the DNA sample, and that's why they had to go back a third time. That's my opinion. That's what I think. Well, when I read that and I heard that, I thought, you shady bastards, yous have been told there isn't the follicle on the end of the hair, so you need to go back and get more. And that's why they went back a third time, was because they had to pluck the hair, because there was no follicle on the end for it to be able to be tested. And somebody's told them that.
Yeah, yeah. To go back the third time, and that I have to go back and correct myself, because it was the third time that they had gone back, that the mortician had to undress her, and remove her from her casket and undress her, and allow them to do it, and it was just horrible. And this guy that followed these detectives after they left with the second time, he said that they spent quite a bit of time in the trailer, and that it looked like they were doing things to his car. Um, and
They
so,
climbed through the window.
yeah,
He
yes,
says that he's seen them climbing through the window so that they weren't breaking the fucking police tape. You know
yeah,
what I mean? That kind of corruption was going on back then. You trying to tell me that that fucking corruption isn't going on in Manitowoc now,
yeah,
or even fucking Oklahoma now? You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. And so, well, in Hawkins, this guy, the mortician, he said that he told Bob Macy about it in the courthouse, and told him what the detectives had done. And he, Hawkins says that shortly after that, like, I don't know how shortly, but I'm assuming within a day or so, um, uh, he was arrested
Probably before he even left the
before he even
courthouse.
left the building. Yeah, exactly. And he was arrested and extradited to Texas, and he was imprisoned on some other well, he says trumped up charges, you take that for what it's worth, but he was arrested, extradited to Texas, and he was imprisoned. He was made to stay in jail during the whole trial, the whole Dewey George Moore's trial. um, I mean, and that wasn't, apparently, according to Mark Fuhrman, he says that he was actually arrested on assault charges that were, uh, you know, lodged by his ex-wife, who was in Dallas, and that's probably true. But we just can no longer not be suspect of everything when it comes to Oklahoma, and Bob Macy and Joyce, and Kim and Rocky, and every time there's something that looks like coincident or weird, it's something nefarious, in my opinion. So I don't know, but anyway, so he didn't get to be there for the trial. Unfortunately, he was gone during the entire trial. Uh, so that he couldn't testify to that, or raise a stink about it, and say, hey, we need to, maybe this guy is guilty of whatever, but I saw some shady shit going on too, and this is what I saw, but he didn't get to do that. So,
But isn't it interesting though that that guy ends up back in an Oklahoma County courtroom testifying in a preliminary hearing as a jailhouse snitch?
yep. Yeah, I was
I
just gonna,
mean, so
yeah, carry on.
what was Bob Macy threatening him with to make him do that?
Right.
He used that guy. See, that's what they do here. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's disgusting, and it's uh apparently, Janice Davis eventually had, stated or testified that she had sent the guys back to the funeral home to get the hair samples from the girl. And I can't believe it. Well, the one guy, like we said, it was his, like Kay said at the beginning, it was his first homicide case. But the other detective, was more seasoned. And for them to go and cut the hairs, just like Alice was saying, doesn't make sense. They have to know that they're not going to get the evidence from cut hair, that they have to have the follicles. And so evidently that was Janice Davis that had said, go back to the funeral home. I don't care if you have to desecrate this poor girl's body. I want the hairs plucked. But she says, just because of all that stuff, that doesn't mean that there was any evidence planted. So again, we don't really know very much about Janice Taylor as far as, what she was willing to compromise. Was she as bad as Joyce Gilchrist? Worse? Not as bad? Or, not quite as bad? So, I don't know. I don't know any details about her work. So, um, anyway, which um, kind of eventually leads into, some more, I don't know, I don't want to say tragedy, but, what's the controversy in the case. So in this particular case, like there's already not enough. So,
Well, they're doing that thing that they do, where they feel like someone's, so they collect evidence to use in court to support their suspicions.
mhm,
I mean, we I guess that's what they're trained to do because they're still doing it.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it's like the one detective said on the first or the second trip back to the funeral home, or it was the first one. We got our guy, but we just need to get more evidence to prove it or to cement the deal or whatever. And I don't know. They had their guy, but there wasn't enough evidence to prove it, so they had to go and find some. Is what it really amounted to, in my opinion, of course. But I'm a little
But
biased.
But after hearing Hawkins' charges, the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals ruled in 1995, although this certainly suggests that Midwest City Police followed a somewhat unusual investigative procedure in this case, mere evidence of unusual conduct on the detective's part, when evaluated in the context of the entire record, is not material and does not create a reasonable probability that the trial's outcome would be changed. Like, do they just have these little excerpts of bullshit that they just in a Rolodex and they just spin it and pick one
Pick
and
out
then
the
just say,
yeah.
oh, this will work for that?
That's what
This
it
is
sounds
so
like.
much bullshit right here. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well,
Judge's book of bullshit, huh?
yes, exactly, exactly. The Rolodex of bullshit, bullshit Rolodex, however you want to name it. Yes, I that's a good analogy, Kay. But but what the judge says, basically, but there's a but, it's all of that stuff. But, even though the court believed that Dewey George Moore was guilty, that, proof of evidence planting or tampering wasn't going to change the jury's decision. Even if there was proof that the evidence was planted, he's guilty, and it's not going to make it different. It's not going to change that, which is just illegal or out, I don't know what the word would be. It's wrong.
I mean, it's not that. It takes what 8 to 12 people to convict a person by looking at the evidence. Well, supposedly looking at the evidence, taking into account different things, taking time to actually fucking deliberate and look at the evidence properly. But then a judge can turn around and say on an appeal, no, well, just because that evidence came to fruition, it wouldn't have changed the jury's mind. But how the fuck does he know whether that would have changed the fucking jury? People, is he a mind reader of 12 fucking people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He all of a sudden became fucking psychic by the time the fucking court ended and the time that the appeal came through. That he knows that this wouldn't have changed the fucking jury. Come on to fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that is that how you really is that how you really feel, Alice, or are you holding back a little?
Just hold him back a wee bit.
Okay. All right. Well, stop doing that. Stop doing that.
Not all a bunch of tossers.
Yeah.
But he does finally get a new evidentiary hearing. At the time of the writing of this book had not been concluded. So, Cherie, did you happen to look up and see how that evidentiary hearing went?
No, what I found was that he passed away before they it was concluded. His appeal was still in process when he passed away.
Okay.
Of natural causes.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Which is sad. You know, and it shouldn't matter. I mean, it sucks that he's dead. Oh my God, it's so frustrating because he was a bad guy. I mean, he was a criminal. He's,
yeah,
you know,
it was a bad.
he had a past, but there's no evidence to prove that he killed this girl. In fact, the evidence or the MO, if you want to use that term, wasn't his MO. He, you know, he what, like Kay said in the beginning, he liked young girls, and this girl wasn't sexually assaulted. So, you know, it's frustrating that, well, you know, we'll go ahead and plant the evidence then. And so why it's sad is that while his case was in appeals, he dies, and I don't think that that appeal should stop just because he died. You know, of course, I know that that's not how it works, or probably isn't how it works, but, you know, so he dies and doesn't get to see his appeals, you know, through to the end. And, and so, oh well, he just died and that was it. He was a convicted, rapist and murderer now. Um, and that's going to be the only thing that he was probably going to be remembered for. And I don't think that's right. I'm sorry. Um, he had already done his time in prison for the other crimes that he committed, you know, and he stole a car. Yep, he sure did. But that sure wasn't a reason to, just like Stephen Avery, you know, took part in supposedly torturing a cat. That is no, you can't try them and convict them for those things. And that's what the judges, that's what the attorneys and judges and jury and everything in this case, again, just like with Malcolm Rent Johnson, that's what they did to Dewey George Moore. Um, and you know, the difference is, you know, Malcolm Rent Johnson was executed. Dewey George Moore just stayed in prison for all of his, you know, most of his life, waiting to get an appeal. So same kind of thing in a sense.
It did say that the Oklahoma County judge would not refuse to allow the defense's chemist to have the evidence to test. That sounds familiar too.
Yeah.
That needs to stop. That shit has to stop. If someone wants to test something, it needs to get tested. I
Yes.
mean, what in the heck? God, that's
Yeah. It's just
maddening.
I mean, you'd think with the Gilchrist scandal and that happened, and the amount of evidence that she fucked up, they'd be happy to get somebody new if they were that sure either their conviction and everything like that. They'd be happy to have somebody else come in and retest the evidence, but to not even let them get anywhere near it and refuse it, I mean, that's just fucking
that's
ridiculous. And that's what I don't understand about Stephen and Brendan's case and Daniel's case. If the state is so fucking sure that their evidence is that rock solid and that fucking sealed tight shut, then why no hand over every bit of evidence to get tested?
Yep.
Because they know it's all a lot of bullshit, and they know that the fuckers are going to get caught because they didn't think people would be looking into it as much as what they're looking into it, and some of them are shitting themselves.
Right. I second that. Every bit of it.
I third it.
Yeah. When they were getting ready for to do the when he was granted the evidentiary hearing, the new hearing, the federal district court hired Patricia Eddings, who was a consulting forensic scientist from Fort Worth, to re-examine the evidence, or the hair and fiber evidence in the case. And even though this Patricia Eddings had been appointed by a federal court, the Oklahoma County judge refused to allow her to test it or even look at the evidence. She wasn't even allowed to see it. Uh, and the only thing that she was allowed to do, was to do a review of Janice Davis's testimony. Um, and she said that she had never seen, when she testified based on Janice Davis's evidence, she said she had rarely seen so much cross transference of hair and fibers ever in a case. And but she couldn't test the evidence herself. And I just wonder, how does a county judge get away with blatantly refusing to follow a federal court's demands, or instructions, or whatever? How do they get away with that? I don't understand it. Hey, how do they get away with that?
I don't know, man. They do what they want.
They do what they want, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. And until these judges and these prosecutors start being held accountable in some way, shape, or form that we haven't been able to quite, come up with, they're just going to
Right.
keep doing it. And they
But
have.
instead of that, guess what the 58th legislation is working on in Oklahoma?
What?
They are trying to make it illegal to photograph or video the police.
Oh, they're trying to do
That's
that
how they're
here
going to
too.
show their support for the police.
Yeah.
That's so much bullshit, because you know what commonly happens is, oh, the body cam wasn't working, or oops, my body cam got knocked off. They're gonna do some shady shit, so they just
My
crash
battery
into
died.
something and throw their body cam off to the
What's the
side.
Yeah.
what's their reasoning for saying that's a good idea?
I don't know that. I mean,
Yeah.
all that it said was that that's the way that they were showing their support for law enforcement.
Yeah. Let's support
You know,
the bad, dirty cops, and let the innocent, or, you know, law-abiding citizens just keep getting killed and accused and sent to prison for things they didn't do. Let's just do that, because that's the right thing to do in America.
right, I have an idea. Let's make a law where if an accusation isn't recorded, or a situation isn't recorded, it cannot be used in court.
Right. Yeah.
I agree.
See how that goes.
Let's do that.
I mean, to be honest, I think it's more so that the judges, law enforcement, prosecutors, they all know that they can get away with lying, that they can get away with bending the truth a wee bit, and fuck all's going to happen to them. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the biggest things. I mean, if police start getting reprimanded and punished, whether it's a month without leave, or like if it's a verbal abuse to somebody or something like that, you know what I mean? then they'd maybe start fucking learning that they can't get away with this shit anymore. Because, I mean, over here, I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm not saying our police is brilliant, and I mean, after just watching the Luke Mitchell case documentary that happened here in 2003, he was a 14-year-old laddie at the time, and I didn't know much about the case. I believed he was innocent, but I didn't know as much about the case. But watching that documentary, our police was just as fucking bad.
Oh,
But over here, though, we've got like an integrity unit that if any member of the public feels like they can go to their sergeant and then go to their superintendent and then go to the one above that, and then if they're not happy that they're getting any results for that, then they can go even higher than that, and it goes to a separate independent unit, and then they investigate it. And if they're found with misconduct or anything like that, they're kicked out. And it's not like they can go to Scotland down to England and get another job in a police station down in England. They wouldn't be able to get a job in Scotland, England, Ireland, or Wales.
oh,
You know what I mean? Whereas over there, if you're in Oklahoma, you can go to the next state over
right.
and be hired as a police, you know, and that's just completely wrong. That is just wrong in all levels.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It,
Yeah,
it,
it is.
it's frustrating that, you know, and American law, or, oh God, I don't even want to, they want to, talk about how all these other countries are so brutal and so, uh, you know, evil and horrible to their citizens, and, you know, different things like that. Bullshit, because we Americans we look far worse than some of the things that go on in the other countries, like Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, some of those other countries that, a lot of, because of their tradition. I'm not saying it's okay, or I believe in it or anything, but a lot of the things that they do with their citizens, their women particularly, is based on their tradition, and it's still not okay. But for Americans to criticize that, and, talk down to those countries about, in that way, who are they? Who are we? Because we do it, but we just make it legal. We are allowed to do this because these people are criminals, and even if we're trying them for a crime that they may not have committed, they committed a crime at some point, and so they deserve it. They deserve to be where they're at, and that's what we look like, um, in my opinion. So I'd rather be living in a country where things are done solely on the tradition and the way that things were done for hundreds and hundreds of years in their culture, than what we do, making our own rules and, um, you know, convicting and executing people, just because we can. It's just not. It's wrong, and it's embarrassing. Embarrassing.
I mean, that's it. I would have my law enforcement. I mean, and as I say, they're not perfect and they do get things wrong, but I would have my law enforcement and my justice system any day right now over the US justice system.
Yeah.
It's horrible here.
I mean, the fact that they think that they've got the right to take anybody's life,
Yeah.
I think just it's wrong. I mean, life for a life, but a life in prison where they can't do anything. They're locked in a cell. They're only out so many. For the ones that truly do commit the crime, deserve to be there. But think of the ones that have been caught for, as you say, a robbery. I mean, a robbery is a robbery, no matter how much you look at it. But a robbery is lesser than what a murder is. But somebody who commits robbery and somebody who commits murder both can get life in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then, yeah, you look at the, what is it called? The punishment. has to fit the crime, or however it's said. Um,
Yeah.
we've seen plenty of cases that we've, all looked at or read about or are involved in, and the 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 punishments are not fitting the crimes. They're just
No.
not
You,
always.
yeah, it's an emotional reaction.
Yeah, right, based on a climate or a culture that's or whatever's going on in the particular community at the time. Yeah,
Yeah. But see, the media's got a lot to do with that and all.
they have it all,
Because,
everything to do with it.
yeah, in local areas, I mean, even here, um, in 2003, where we looked Mitchell, it took them 10 months to arrest that laddie. And every day, without fail, every paper, every TV station had a picture of him on the telly or a picture of him in the paper and everything like that. So that Wayne got convicted partly and with the media as well. So the media have got a lot to do with it. I mean, with some of the media and that, I think that they shouldn't be allowed to hand out a name or any information until there has been a charge. You know what I mean? This person has been charged. Other than that, say a male or a Caucasian male, an African American male, or whatever, an Asian male has been arrested on such and such. But don't say any names or anything like that, because if they're innocent, then that's going to screw up their life. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Daniel and Stephen and that, they're innocent, but this isn't going to be easy. This is them tarred with that for the rest of their life. Even if they get exonerated, it's going to always be, oh, Daniel who got arrested for this, or Stephen who got arrested for that. You know what I mean? So I think the media have got a lot to do with it and all.
right. I think they have everything to do with it.
Yeah, they're either gonna have to go live in solitude somewhere, or go to LA
Go to LA,
or New York City. I mean,
yeah, where
there's
they'll
some
blend in. Nobody gives a shit
yeah,
about them or what happened to
yeah,
them. Right.
yeah. You're not gonna know. You're not gonna have people. They definitely not gonna be. You definitely wouldn't be in Oklahoma or Wisconsin for sure.
No, no. I mean, I think when Stephen gets out, he's not going. He's not going to stay in Wisconsin. I think he'd be silly to stay in Wisconsin. But then, if he's as stubborn as what some people say, he might just say fuck it. You know what I mean? They're not fucking pushing me out in my tune and everything like that, because that's the kind of attitude I would have. But
I
you
think
know,
he's figured it out now. I think he would leave.
yeah,
Stephen.
I,
Oh yeah, I
I,
really
Oh
do.
yeah.
I
God, especially where they're at in Wisconsin. I mean, you know, uh, they would his life would not be safe. I just don't think his life would be safe.
no,
Yeah, he needs to scooch over a state.
yeah. Or as I've says, he can come and stay in Scotland. We've got beautiful land. He could have his own land because he's going to get a shitload of money when he gets out with all the fucking lawsuits that Zellner's going to help him place and everything like that. And the
Yeah,
same can happen for Daniel as well. Eventually,
yeah.
Daniel can come to fucking Scotland and stay in Scotland.
Yeah.
I'll tell he'll
Yeah,
be
you
happy.
tell him that.
Yeah, for sure. He needs to know he has options, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. My door's open for him any day. He can come and stay with me until he gets himself sorted.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because when I respond to different things on YouTubes that I watch, and you always have such ignorant uh, people who have to just call names and call you or you're just a fucking rape lover, and all that kind of stuff. And it, yeah,
Yeah,
it really, I don't, I I do emotionally react to it. I don't respond to it like I used to, but I do emotionally react to it because, well, you just let that rapist come and live with you then, or live next to you. Let them be your next door neighbor. And you know what I've said back regarding Daniel, I would not have a problem letting Daniel Holtzclaw live in my house. If he needed
No,
to do that, he could do that. And I live here with my daughter and my two young granddaughters, and I live in a neighborhood, I live in a cul-de-sac full of kids, and that's how much I trust and believe in his innocence. So yeah, if he needs to come and live here, he can come and live here. And if that doesn't, that's just that I believe in his innocence that much. Um,
yeah.
and I don't know. It really, really bothers me when people try to pull that one. Oh, let him live next door to your grandma, or let him pull your grandma over on the road. Okay, I'm down. I'm fine to do that.
I
But
mean, it's not just that, Rhonda. It's the fact that these stupid people actually think that if we thought that he was guilty, if they were guilty in any way, that we would think like that. Because I tell you, if I thought for a second that Daniel was guilty, I would turn around and say, "Nah, he's guilty. I've read it. I've seen it. I've went through the documents, the podcast, everything. He's guilty." But I can say with 1,000% certainty what I've read, what I've heard, what I've seen. That man is 1,000% innocent, and I'm a single female living on my own, and I would have him under my roof any fucking time, day or night, and I would trust him with my life.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
He is an honorable guy.
and I believe that I believe that he is honorable, and just with the letters that we've exchanged and how honest he's been as he can be in his letters, to me, and um, the things that we've read that are on the petition, that the statements that he's made and the different things that we've heard in messages that Jenny shared, publicly or whatever in, excuse me, like with Michelle Malkin and things like that. He's just, and what we need is for him to be able to keep that honor and that valor and that truth and that honesty until we can get him out because it's a hard life, prison, and it does change people, and it does um harden people because you have
You have
to
to be
live,
that
you have to
way.
survive, and well
I mean, you can't be on the phone sympathizing with someone who's all shredded up. I mean, you just don't get to have those emotions in there.
you can't
I
just
mean, you just can't let anyone see you in a vulnerable state. And maybe that was one of the hardest things for Daniel because, prison has changed who he is.
right. It's had to. It had,
I mean, you know, what what have they done to him? I mean, they what has happened to him can't be reversed all the way.
No.
it
It's
should.
not going to go away.
That is really nice to see. T1 says, I believe Daniel Holtzclaw is innocent, and I'm so happy to know that you know that you've learned enough about his case that you can now see that and believe it, and we just have to.
Thanks. Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for taking the time to ask questions and
Yeah,
and question things that don't make sense or that make you have further questions because that's all that Daniel really has ever asked anyone to do is to look at the facts of his case and decide for yourself because he knows that when you do, you will see that he's innocent.
I mean,
Yeah,
does Daniel know about Stephen and Brendan and about everybody that's tried to help them and everything like that?
yeah.
And does he think they're innocent as well?
Now he hasn't seen Making a Murderer. What he knows about the case is just whatever shows up in his television feed. Um, but because it is a famous enough case, he does understand what's happening, um, and probably he was tuned into it more because Zellner was representing him too, so
Yeah.
he had a chance to, dig into who was Zellner, and that ends up being a big part of who she is.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, surely her team are still sort of, even though she know her herself specifically, surely some of them in our company are still working on Daniel's case.
I,
I don't think so.
I don't.
I mean, well,
Not from what I
okay, let me just
understand. I don't
say this.
know.
I mean, if there were things that she was working on that the team needs help with, I have no doubt that she would be helping, whatever, passing documents back and forth or whatever, stuff like that. But
Uh-huh.
as far as being in the middle of the case, I mean, the reason that she left the case was just because she took it on too soon, I guess. I think she really felt like she was going to be finished with Brendan's case or with Steven's case. Um,
Right.
and I'm not really sure. I know she had several clients, but I wasn't really sure how many trials she had coming up.
Well, she's also
And
still working on Melissa. I cannot say your last name, McClunsky, or I can't pronounce it. Um, but that's also really a high profile case as well. So she's got a lot that she's doing, and
I wouldn't be shocked to see her come back around, though.
sure.
I mean,
Well,
she's no stranger to how long this takes.
that's what I was maybe thinking. I mean, maybe with what she's discovered in Stephen's case, she realised that she needed to spend a lot of time on that. And
Mm.
once Stephen, I mean, it's unfortunate for Daniel that it might take that long, but once she's finished with Stephen, then hopefully she's not got too much under her plate that she can jump back onto Daniel's case again.
Yeah.
That would be so nice. I mean, I appreciate the fact that Daniel's case is 13 cases, so
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate that more than most people do, I think.
But
Having to
I think if her and Brian Bates get together and
Ooh,
give
I
her a
don't
clap,
think they like each other,
They don't.
actually. I mean, I just saw little comments. I don't know what that deal is.
right? Because that would be I think that would be a good working team, with his investigative skills and her lawyer skills, sort of thing. They might pull a lot more out if they got their heads together.
But he definitely knows the case inside and out. But eh, I feel like it's not an option for him to be involved since he was part of the initial defense team.
Well, he
Um,
probably would be called as a witness, wouldn't you think? If anything, um,
well, when you're claiming, well, I mean, I don't know how it's going to go, but I just feel like
well,
it would be problematic down the road to involve him because he was part of the first
right,
team.
Oh, right. And
yeah,
if they bring up an effective counsel.
Well, there's been an effective counsel, and I mean, you're going to close the door on that, I guess. If I don't know, I don't know. So that's
Yeah.
just my thought, but it would be so great. I feel like it would be so great to have him involved because, Daniel said that he met with Bates all the time. So,
and he's
So
good at it.
Daniel trusts her.
yeah, I mean, he wasn't meeting with Adams preparing his case. So
Yeah.
he was mostly meeting with Bates. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's good that Daniel's got somebody that he can trust like that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In the I don't want to say law enforcement, but yeah, I guess in the law enforcement realm of things, I suppose.
Yeah. Aye.
Well, so to kind of chapter 4 was pretty lengthy. Well, they're all kind of lengthy, but we're trying to give you the meat of these different cases. And so, but on the outside of this case, the chapter, the title of the chapter is "Cat Fight in the Crime Lab," and it was a battle between Janice Davis and Joyce Gilchrist, and so, I don't want to leave the chapter, and I don't know, Kay, if you were done or if you still had things that you were going to talk about, or because I don't want to.
Well, the only other real relevant thing to the end of his case was just that, um, of course, they questioned his attorney. Did he think he did it? And his attorney said, all these different things really point to um, their evidence was just too good for it not to have been planted evidence and all the police misconduct. So there was an attorney, a Norman attorney, who represented Moore on appeal, and he argued that although you would never know for certain if Moore was guilty because of the questions surrounding the hair and fiber evidence, um, he alleged in an appellate brief he filed for Moore, the victim's estranged father, Howard Ben Gilbert, was investigated by the DA's office for tying his children up with duct tape. Immediately prior to her abduction, Jennifer was heard saying, "There's my dad. I gotta go."
Yeah,
Uh, so
which should have been, it wasn't used in court. I mean, in the original trial, you know.
That's a huge red flag.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that part was just not. She was afraid of her stepfather, is what he was abusive, and or yeah, her stepfather, he was abusive, and that there were DHS cases against him, and for what is the word, abusing? No, I don't know if it was actually abusing a child. Oh, I think it was child abuse, and so, but that didn't get to be a Denny suspect, if you will, or wait, what is it, Cherie, in Oklahoma?
Gore.
A Gore,
Or
a Gore suspect was never entertained. So you can't even really, try to even investigate deeper into that because it was never allowed or done. And again, you got to look at the defense counsel, in a sense for that. But if they're they're public defenders, and they don't have time and money to go and spend, which is a topic we've talked about before. They don't have the money from the public defender's office to go and try to find other suspects. And they said as much in the Malcolm Rent Johnson case. They pretty much, and what did the Oklahoma paper say? We shouldn't be spending. Good for the judge not allowing the public defender to have any money to defend this guy. He did this, and he doesn't deserve a chance to be defended. And it's just like the most backwards mentality to me, for them to think that way. But evidently they do, and they sleep at night somehow. Well, maybe. I mean, I don't know how well Butch McKenna slept. Maybe not very well. And then of course at the end of this chapter, we learn that Janice Davis may not have been sleeping very well either, because she also, I think it was a year after she left the crime lab, which was right after this case, she also took her life. And so, it was just, and that, I think I mentioned this before, but this was the case where um, uh, Mark Fuhrman was told by whoever it was he was interviewing at that particular time that there was a suicide letter left or suicide note left, but uh, according to whoever this was that he interviewed, and I'm right here at this point, trying to see who it was that was saying it, but anyway, that she had quit the police department and lived with her new husband in Perry, Oklahoma. And on August 25th, 1988, she committed suicide. And oh, this is what Mark Fuhrman says. He said, several people told me that Davis left a suicide note, but Macy's office got possession of it. And so nobody ever saw it. And I dug and dug and dug for something about it, and there's nothing that I could find about any of that.
Was
So
that the same case with McKenna? Or did I have that confused with this case?
the
Didn't
suicide note,
McKenna leave suicide notes? Did
there
he not leave more?
he left a note, but I don't know if anything. I don't remember anything being said about it. But he did leave a
Well,
note.
I remember that the attorney who was defending, right, the guy who was on trial, she tried to get access to the notes and they wouldn't let her have
Oh,
them. I think it might have been the judge that wouldn't let her
right.
have them.
Yeah, the judge wouldn't. That's right. Yeah, so there was a note left by Butch McKenna, but the judge wouldn't allow. I think what was it, Tedder? Was that her last name? Um,
I
wouldn't
think
give her.
so.
Yeah, told her she couldn't have it. So, but so yeah, same kind of thing, and I don't know if some of these people get consciences or just can't live with lies that they've told and lives that they've taken. And so I don't know. And we'll never know, obviously, with these two, but it's just, more parallels that makes you kind of wonder, what the heck is going on in Oklahoma. So,
Yeah, they're just doing whatever they want.
yeah. Um, so after Janice Davis left the crime lab, uh, Joyce Gilchrist she just could not mentally accept the attention and the praise and the accolades that Janice Davis got for the Moore case and other cases as well. But she just couldn't stand it. And so when Davis left the crime lab, um, Joyce Gilchrist, kind of started rising up. Her star started to shine a little bit, and that was about that time when we started seeing more from her about her, and hearing more about her amazing evidence that she was, you know, getting and testifying to, and getting people put on death row. And so um, she let's see, this is what the last line I think of this chapter says. With her chief rival out of the way, Gilchrist began her long and troubled reign as queen of the crime lab, and she sure did. uh, she was able to pretty much do and say and get away with everything, um, for a long time, for too long, for way too many years, and way too many people on death row and prison, and that kind of stuff. So a lot of lives were lost. A lot of freedoms were lost, because of Joyce Gilchrist and Bob Macy. So anyway, that's a brief summary of chapter 4. um,
Daniel didn't read chapter 4 yet, I guess, or I thought he had read through 5, but I guess he needed to go back and look at it again and make notes or whatever, which he didn't do. I'm kind of wondering if it's if he has to be in a certain frame of mind to be able to do that, because I know it pisses him off when he gets into these chapters.
Yeah.
So I just said, whatever, I think we're going to chat about it tomorrow, but any pertinent details we'll add to next week, but
Yeah. That's
couldn't give him a hard time about that.
yeah. Well, and I would imagine he would have to be in some sort of frame of mind, like you said,
I
to
definitely.
yeah, to accept some of the crap that he's reading about that is so parallel to what he's gone through in his own life. So
And I mean, especially knowing that reading about fucking Gilchrist the bitch is the one that sent him away learned fae. You know what I mean? So that's one bitch following another bitch. You know what I mean? So I'm surprised. I wouldn't be surprised that it drives them nuts knowing that she learned for her and that her shady dealings is what put him away.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense to me. I mean, I could see that. I could easily see that being a thought process for sure. Okay, we have picked it pretty well apart for the most part. I mean, there's a lot of detail in the chapter that is really interesting information to have, but we're basically sharing with you guys the corruption of the crime lab, and the prosecution and things like that. And so, if you want to get all the details of the chapter, just head on over to the audiobook section in Daniel's Truth, and you can hear it all. And then you can come back with questions or join the panel and join with us when we talk about it next time. Um, are there any other questions? T1's been engaging very well as usual. And like Kay said, thank you, T1, for, really being serious about looking into Daniel's case and asking questions and having an open mind and believing truth when you see it and read it and know it. So we appreciate that. And to everybody, Susan has done the same thing. And so it's really just every time we can get somebody else to take the time to get the information, get the basic facts even, and see that Daniel's innocent and share it and talk about it. That's how we do it. That's how we will just start chipping away at what happened. So um, I just want to let you guys know there's not very many left in the chat. That's okay if you hear it later, but I will be going out to Arizona, I believe, next Friday afternoon. But I will still be trying to stay as engaged as I possibly can with Kay and Cherie and my gang to make sure that, I can help, with the podcast or the book cast or, but, if I have other things that are far more important, and if those things are occurring at the time, then that's what I'll be doing. So, but I'll be here Tuesday to go over, have another chat, and we can talk about pretty much whatever we want to talk about in the case that we know about, and hopefully, everybody will be there to join in with us. So, until then, Kay, Cherie, Alice, do you guys have any last words for the stream?
No, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, just thank you everybody for joining us in chat and look forward to seeing you all next week.
All right. Until then, peace out.